Adam had known from the moment he stepped onto the plane that this flight would test him, but he didn't expect it to unravel before the plane even left the ground. His daughter Lily had begun fussing the moment they settled into their narrow economy seats, her small fists waving in protest, her cheeks flushed, her breaths uneven with the threat of tears. Adam bounced her gently, whispered to her, made silly noises he would have been embarrassed to make anywhere else. But nothing worked, and by the time the flight attendants began their safety demonstration, the dam broke. Lily let out a wail so piercing and sudden that a few passengers actually flinched, and Adam felt his soul leave his body. "Shish, baby, it's okay. Please, sweetheart," he murmured, rubbing her tiny back, gently rocking her, but the crying only intensified. Her face scrunched, her fists trembled, and her sobs came out in painful waves. The pressure change during takeoff hadn't even begun yet, and already she was miserable. Adam knew it would get worse. He'd read every article on babies and flights. He'd even packed 3 different types of pacifiers in case she hated her favorite that day. But none of that mattered when she was overwhelmed, exhausted, and scared. Passengers began shifting in their seats, some giving sympathetic nods, but many offering that particular annoyed glance reserved for parents who dared bring children onto public transportation. A woman across the aisle sighed loudly, muttering something about people these days. The businessman seated beside Adam pressed his fingers to his temples as if personally victimized by the sound. A younger girl wearing headphones made a dramatic show of turning her music volume up. Adam's cheeks burned. He hated this. Not the baby. Never Lily. But the feeling of being watched, judged, silently accused of failing as a parent because his infant was upset. If only they knew how close he was to breaking himself. The sleepless nights, the half-eaten meals, the racing to daycare between shifts at the auto shop, the bills piling up like taunting reminders of everything he wasn't providing. He bounced her again, whispering sweet nonsense, brushing his thumb across her hair, hoping she'd feel safe enough to calm down. Sweat dripped down the back of his neck. He hadn't even wanted to take this flight, but it was the only way he could afford to get Lily to his sister's wedding. He'd promised he wouldn't miss it, and his sister had begged him to bring the baby so she could finally meet her niece. Borrowing money wasn't an option. Adam refused to ask for help he couldn't repay. The flight attendant approached, offering a polite but strained smile. "Is there anything you need, sir?" He shook his head, mortified. "Just a miracle," he joked weakly. But the crying didn't stop. In fact, it grew louder with the plane's ascent, bouncing through the cabin walls like it was amplified by invisible speakers. A few passengers groaned. One covered his face with his jacket. The businessman next to Adam finally snapped, muttering under his breath, "Great. Just what I needed on a 4-hour flight." Adam swallowed hard. He wanted to disappear, to evaporate, to sink into the scratchy airplane carpet and never come out. Anxiety wrapped around him so tightly he could barely breathe. "Come on, Lily, please," his voice cracked. That was when he saw him. A tall figure in a charcoal gray suit stood up in first class, sharp, commanding, the kind of presence that made people instinctively move out of the way. His sleek wristwatch caught the cabin lights. His broad shoulders, straight spine, and perfectly controlled expression radiated a level of authority Adam recognized only from people who had power, real power. A billionaire power. Adam didn't know who he was at first, only that everyone suddenly stopped pretending not to stare. A few whispered, "As that, it has to be. That's Ethan Hale, the Hale Enterprises guy." Adam had heard the name before. Everyone had. Ethan Hale was one of the richest men in the country, known for his ruthless business sense, staggering wealth, and impossibly private personal life. He wasn't supposed to be on a commercial flight. People like him had private jets, entire crews, champagne pre-departure drinks, and more legroom than Adam had in his entire apartment. So why was he walking toward him? Adam braced himself, cheeks burning so hot they could have lit the overhead lights. This was it. He was going to get scolded by a billionaire in front of 180 people. Told to control his child. Told to do something magical he'd already tried 100 times. Told he was ruining the flight for everyone. But Ethan didn't look irritated. His expression remained unreadable. Focused, yes, but not angry. He stopped right beside Adam's seat. And then, in a moment so shocking it stole the breath from every onlooker, Ethan gently extended his arms and said, in a calm, surprisingly warm voice, "May I?" Part 2. Adam stared up at him, stunned. For a second, he genuinely believed he had misheard. "What?" he croaked, bouncing Lily helplessly. "The baby," Ethan said quietly. "May I?" Passengers craned their necks. The businessman beside Adam blinked rapidly, mouth hanging open. The flight attendant looked like she had just forgotten all her training. Adam hesitated. It felt strange, handing his child to a stranger, let alone that stranger. But something in Ethan's eyes, something steady and deeply familiar with the situation, reassured him. It wasn't pity. It wasn't annoyance. It was understanding. With trembling hands, he passed Lily to Ethan. And silence swept across the cabin like someone had flipped a switch. Ethan held her so naturally it was jarring. His massive suit, tailored perfectly to his body, somehow didn't seem restrictive at all. He supported her head with a practiced palm, rocked her with a rhythm that spoke of experience, and gently swayed from side to side. Then he whispered, low and soft, "Pressure hurts their ears. You have to help them yawn." He brushed his thumb along Lily's cheek, and to Adam's absolute disbelief, she hiccuped, and then slowly quieted. "What the?" Adam whispered, replacing embarrassment. The passengers who had complained now watched with a mix of shock and admiration. Ethan hummed. Not a random hum. No. A lullaby. An old one. Something with a melody sweet enough to pull the tension out of the air itself. Something that felt like memory. Within seconds, Lily's cries shrank to gentle whimpers. Her fists unclenched. Her breathing steadied. Her tiny head rested against Ethan's chest as though she belonged there. The billionaire CEO continued pacing softly, gently bouncing her, whispering to her in a tone so tender it almost hurt to hear. Adam saw it before he could make sense of it, the flicker of pain behind Ethan's eyes. A deep, buried ache. The way he clung just a little tighter than necessary, as if afraid she would vanish. Finally, after several minutes, Adam found his voice again. "You're good with kids." Ethan paused, his expression breaking for just a second. Not visibly, but in a way someone like Adam, who knew grief, exhaustion, and loneliness intimately, could recognize. "I had a daughter," Ethan said quietly, eyes locked on the small sleeping baby in his arms. "Her name was Arya. She and her mother died in a car accident 6 years ago." His voice barely rose above the white noise hum of the plane. "I haven't held a baby since." Adam's breath caught. The billionaire everyone saw as cold and untouchable stood before him as nothing more than a grieving father who had once known this exact motion, rocking, humming, soothing, only to have it ripped away. "I'm so sorry," Adam managed. Ethan nodded slightly, swallowing the emotion rising in his throat. When he finally handed Lily back, he did it with a gentleness that felt like a goodbye to something he lost long ago. Adam received her carefully, noticing she had fallen into a peaceful sleep, her tiny hand clutching Ethan's sleeve one last time before letting go. Ethan straightened, adjusting the cuff of his suit, smoothing his tie, a practiced ritual of regaining composure. But his eyes lingered on the baby longer than he meant them to. "Thank you," Adam whispered, his voice thick with gratitude. I didn't know how to." "You're doing your best," Ethan said, cutting him off. His tone softened. "And that's all she needs. Being a single parent is the hardest job in the world. Harder than anything I've ever done, and I run 17 companies." A weak laugh escaped Adam. "Feels impossible some days." "It does," Ethan admitted, his gaze drifting out the cabin window. "Especially when you're doing it alone." Without preamble, he pulled a card from his inner pocket, a sleek, matte black business card, embossed in silver. He handed it to Adam. "This is my direct number," Ethan said. "Not my assistant's. Not my office. Mine." Adam's hands shook holding something that probably cost more to print than his last week of groceries. Why would someone like you give someone like me?" "This isn't charity," Ethan cut in. "It's something I wish someone had done for me." He paused. "A little support. Someone to call when everything feels like it's falling apart. Someone who understands. Adam swallowed the lump in his throat. Are you sure? He whispered. Ethan nodded once. You helped me today more than you know. Me? How? Adam asked, baffled. Ethan looked at Lily, sleeping, peaceful, tiny fingers curled around Adam's shirt. Because for the first time in 6 years, he said softly, painfully, honestly, I remembered what it felt like to hold my daughter without the ache killing me. Adam couldn't speak. Neither could many of the passengers who had witnessed the moment. Some blinked back tears. Some simply stared in disbelief at a billionaire bearing his heart to a stranger in economy. As the plane began its descent, Ethan stepped back toward first class, but before he left, he rested a steady hand on Adam's shoulder. You're not as alone as you think, he said. And for the first time in a long time, Adam believed it. The plane touched down with Lily still sleeping peacefully, Ethan disappearing into the crowd as silently as he had arrived, and Adam holding both his daughter and a business card that felt like the beginning of something neither of them could have seen coming. An unlikely friendship, a second chance for a broken billionaire, and perhaps the quiet rewriting of two lives that had needed each other more than fate ever let them know.